Thank you, Dave, and hi, everybody. We're set for the second round of practice for Daytona 500 qualifying, and what a beautiful day in Daytona Beach. 65 degrees, little light breeze, and as in the first session, we'll see single car runs. Second in line to go out is Bill Elliott. 22 years ago to this weekend, he set the all-time track qualifying record for what is now the Sprint Cup Series, 210 miles per hour. And guess who was fastest in practice session number 1? Guess the old magic is still there. Bill Elliott had the fastest lap. Bobby Labonte also in a Ford. Dale Jr., Martin Truex and Chevrolets, then the 3 Toyotas. And here's a look at the top 20 of 52 cars that went out for practice runs. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy with Larry McReynolds. DW is on the property. He should join us in just a little bit. What did we learn in practice round 1?
Well, I think it was pretty predictable, and it was actually pretty calm. It was a 2-hour practice session. The Hendrick cars were quick. The Gibbs Toyotas were quick. The DEI Ganassi Chevrolets looked awfully good, but I think it was a little bit of a surprise to see that number 21 Wood Brothers. A great surprise, yes, I might add, to see those guys fastest in that practice. Bobby Labonte and that Yates Ford, of course, that's the same car that sat on the pole at Talladega in the fall. Not a total surprise there, but now this is the proof of the pudding. You saw right there, Mike, the wind has picked up a little bit from that first practice, and that will play havoc. And of course, I'm sure near the end of this practice, everybody's hair will be on fire because this is our last chance before we go to qualifying tomorrow.
Let's have a look at our Toyota track description for Daytona International Speedway as Bobby Labonte sits ready to roll. This 2.5-mile trioval was built and opened in 1959. The track configuration has not changed. 31-degree banking in the corners, 18 at the trioval. 3,000-foot back straightaway parallels one of the runways at the adjacent Daytona Beach Airport.
Now, Mike, you pointed out Bill Elliott was the second car in line. Now, his time that he ran in that first practice was 47.96, 187.5 miles per hour. His first lap on this run here was 48.28. I think he may very well indeed be able to run faster on this lap here than that 47.96, because we saw cars in the first practice picking up, depending on where they ran the first lap. We know the second lap they'll be right around the bottom, picking up anywhere from 3 to 5 tenths. So if he picks up 3.5, 4 tenths, it'll be quicker than he ran in that first practice. 47.88, so he picked up about a tenth from what he ran in that first practice session, and he's almost 188 miles per hour, that 21 Ford.
47.96 in the first session, 47.88 in this session. So Elliott driving for the storied Wood Brothers with a part-year sponsorship from Motorcraft, and they are looking for sponsors to be able to run the full season. And what a way to come out of the box.
Yeah, right now it's a 12-race schedule starting right here at Daytona. Now, we know Bill possibly could have the championship provisional to fall back on. There's a lot of other champions in front of him, like Tony Stewart being one of them. But you want to have one of those 3 or 4 fastest speeds that's not in the top 35 tomorrow. Then you pretty much know you'll race in the 51st annual Daytona 500.
Right. We'll discuss that a little further on, what you need to do tomorrow for qualifying to be assured of a spot. Carl Edwards is assured of a spot in the Daytona 500 because he was number 2 in Sprint Cup points in 2008. And the front of that car, we confirmed, is the 2010 Ford Fusion. New grille and headlight decals, and those lower grille and fog light decals are something that's new to Sprint Cup racing this year. But this is the 2010 look, a car that will be in showrooms next month. Let's go down to the garage and join Steve Burns.
Thank you, Mike. Just moments ago, Larry McReynolds talked about Bobby Labonte being second quick overall. I talked to team owner Doug Yates just before this practice, and Bobby, I said, what does Bobby bring to the table? Experience, leadership? He said, keep going, all of the above.
Well, I appreciate that, and this is a great opportunity, like I said in the offseason too, and here of late, and you know, got a really fast race car, and Ask.com on board, and got a great Ford Fusion. So looking forward to good qualifying tomorrow and a great shootout tonight.
All right, thank you, Bobby. And Krista, they said they're going to make just one run and then park it for the remainder of this practice.
Well, Steve, I want to talk about another veteran. Mark Martin said it was an idiot when he turned down Rick Hendrick's first 2 job offers. Now he is exactly where he wants to be, but he said he needed these last 2 years off from full-time competition to recharge his battery, wrap his arms around his family, he says. And now he says he is more ready than any of the guys in this field because of that. He's more mentally prepared, and here is something very scary. He is more physically fit at age 50 than he says he has ever been. I know he could kick my butt in a heartbeat, one arm behind his back.
He's probably one of the 4 or 5 fittest drivers in that whole garage.
No question, runs the whole schedule here in 2009. Now we have 57 cars here trying to qualify for this Daytona 500. About 35 of those cars are in line on pit road. Now we need to stress, as we watch Jeff Gordon in the 24 car on his first run of this practice, that is not NASCAR mandated. The track is open for practice. Gentlemen's agreement, since we're at a restrictor plate racetrack, to simulate what will happen in qualifying tomorrow in single car runs. You want to make sure you're out there all but by yourself. If you can see a car, that car is braking the air and will help your car run faster. If you can space them out, about 4 cars is maximum that you can get that clean lap. So right now it's a gentleman's agreement, but trust me, a little over an hour from now, that gentleman's agreement will probably go right out the window.
Bit of a new look for Jeff Gordon this year. 48.35 is his quicker of the 2 laps, so he is 4th.
I said we could run that.
It's a little slower than he ran in that first practice session.
Bill Elliott quickest so far. Martin Truex, Denny Hamlin, Jeff Gordon, and Carl Edwards. What a difference seeing these cars go around in high definition. Boy, it's got to make you feel like you're here. We are here. My gosh. Bill Elliott, Truex, Hamlin, Kyle Busch completed his run. He is 4th, and Jeff Gordon 5th quickest, just displaced by Joey Logano. And here's Reed Sorensen in the McDonald's 43 for Richard Petty Motorsports. A joining up of Petty Enterprises and Gillette Evernham.
Now we know that a lot of the new Dodges, have a new nose as well as the Fords, and Mike, right now Reed is the slowest of the 10 cars that's been out there. And in that first practice, Mike, we almost saw a mirror of what we witnessed a year ago. The Dodges did not have the speed to run that fast lap, but if you go back a year ago, just like Kurt Busch in the 2 car that ran 2nd to his teammate in the 500, they got their cars driving good for the dual races on Thursday as well as the 500. But we only had 1 Dodge in the top 25 in that first practice session. Elliott Sadler was 17th in the 19 car.
So Kurt Busch teamed this year with David Stremme over at Penske.
This is what we see pretty much during all of practice, getting ready to qualify here, and we'll see it tomorrow during that qualifying. Is you're trying to get this thing wound up with that carburetor restrictor plate, so you want to run the longest distance until you get to 1 lap to go of your qualifying. And when you take the white flag, you'll see that car come right against the yellow line all the way around this 2.5-mile track to try to run the shortest distance.
Elliott Sadler's made a run that is 7th fastest in this session. Jamie Mack, one of the not too many cars that return with the same number and paint scheme and team for 2009.
But he did have a crew chief change. He is linked back up with the guy that probably he had the most success with, Donnie Wingo, that moved over from Chip Ganassi Racing.
6th quickest for McMurray. 48.28. That's 4/10 off of Bill Elliott's fast time. The Guitar Hero Chevrolet. Have you tried that?
I have not.
It's fun. Scott and Katie have that. They had a good bit of fun with it. That's pretty neat. Eric Almirola coming out for his run.
Eric was 13th quickest in that first practice. One of the DEI Ganassi with Felix Sabata's cars that I talked about at the top of the show, that all three of those cars looked awfully good.
Go back down to the garage and Steve.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hanging out with Carl Edwards. And Carl said the only thing they need here is a window so you can hear what the fans are saying. But it is fun for these fans down here.
Yeah, it's cool. But you don't know if they're, they're for you or against you. They're screaming something in the glass, and but as long as they're handing Aflac stuff through, I guess we're all right. It's really kind of a cool thing here, the way they got it so the fans can see what's going on. I know that, if I were looking for a place to get a pit pass or something, this is what I'd do, is so I can come see something. It's kind of neat.
Carl, you had such a great 2008 season, and you said the other night at the Budweiser shootout draw you were excited to get back to work.
Oh yeah. Just fun to be in a race car, I think tonight's going to be a lot of fun because it's no points. It's a great way to start the season, shake the rust off, and, not everything's on the line. Next weekend, that's the big one. And, we've got this car okay right now, but I think we've got to pick up just a little bit of speed for qualifying, that's for sure.
Great to see you back in Daytona.
Good to be back.
Thanks, Steve. Here's Jeff Burton, who had problems last night in practice for the Bud shootout. Losing an engine. That is not the same car. Teams are no longer permitted to run the same car in the Budweiser shootout as for the Daytona 500. The Bud shootout car can become a backup if needed later in the week. Larry just saw a puff of smoke out the left side. That was a little odd, unless it was a little bit of dust or something. That was the gate. Was that the gate 7 area? No, it was over by the backstretch crossover.
Yeah, we watched even in the first practice session a lot of these cars bottoming out. We even talked to Greg Biffle, and Dick Bergman asked him, was the racetrack getting a lot rougher than it was a year ago? And Greg said the biggest thing is we're just much more aggressive this year versus last year. First time to have the cars at Daytona was a year ago. This new car, we're just much more aggressive this year, pulling these things down and just letting them ride solid on the springs.
Jeff Burton moves up the board to 12th with that lap. Bill Elliott is still quickest. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice brought to you by Toyota. For the latest on Toyota racing information, visit toyotaracing.com. By Old Spice Swagger, the scent that makes a difference. And by Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries. Comfort, it's what we do. Bill Elliott quickest, Martin Truex, Denny Hamlin, Eric Almirola, and Kyle Busch. The Fast Five right now as Paul Menard pulls off, completing his run, and he is 7th fastest in that Menard's Quaker State Ford. 19 drivers have been on track thus far, and as Larry explained, there is an agreement among drivers that you don't go out and affect somebody else's single car run, and that's why the cars are pretty well spaced out around the speedway.
But I'm gonna give you an idea of what I was talking about earlier. This is Casey Mears in the 07. He's driving this car this year. He's going off into turn 3. Robbie Gordon in the 7 is halfway down the back straightaway. I will guarantee you that 7 is getting a little bit of a draft off that 07, even though it's half the distance of the back straightaway, and more than likely Mark Martin in his 5 car may be getting a little help off that 7 car. If you can see the car is helping you. And a lot of this is on the shoulders of the spotters. NASCAR requires you, even in this type of a practice session, to have a spotter. And of course, he's really not doing any kind of spotting as far as drafting practice, but this is where the spotter plays a big role. One, he needs to count the laps that each car's run. He knows once he's completed 2 laps, they're coming in, and this is where they try to time it to get you out there in the right position.
Let's go back down to the garage, check with Krista.
We've caught up with Elliott Sadler, and we were joking. You used to drive for the Wood brothers, talk about history, and now the King. How about that?
That's pretty cool. We were talking about it at media day, driving for Richard Petty Motorsports, and I've heard all the stories. from the Wood Brothers side. Now I can't wait to hear all the stories from the King side. But, you know, just an honor for me because I was a race fan long before I became a race car driver. So to be able to drive for the King, and I've already loved hearing the stories already, his and Dale Emmons, and I think they're going to add a lot of raceability to our team and bring a lot of that old-fashioned hardcore racing back to us, and I think that's what we need right now. So it's pretty fun, and actually our car's pretty good right now. It drives very well, and I know if it drives good today, we got a good chance of running good on Thursday and next Sunday.
And team back up with one of your friends, Kevin Buskirk.
You know, Kevin and I had a lot of success together at the 38 car. We won some races, sat on some poles, and then just I could relate to him a lot. And, you know, we did not run as well as we wanted to last year, so we decided to bring him on board, and, man, we've hit it off. We're talking about things that we did back then for adjustments for today. Like, remember when this worked then at Kansas? Well, it'll work today at Rockingham or what have you. So it's working out pretty good for us. Very happy to have him on board. And the Stanley Dodge is driving good, and it's Stanley's first ever appearance at the Daytona 500. So we got some pressure on us, but we want to run good. It's a big weekend.
It is a big weekend. Thank you very much, Elliott. Kevin, of course, was with Elliott back in 2004, and he was an engineer on the Daytona 500 winning team of Kevin Harvick.
Here's Mark Martin just jumping up to 4th on the board, 48.18. That's just about 3/10 off of Bill Elliott's quickest run so far.
But I think Alan Gustafson will like that run right there because that almost duplicated what they ran in the first practice. I think you talked about agendas at the top of the show. Yeah, in the perfect world, you pick up a little bit like Bill Elliott did from the first practice, but you don't want to slow down from that first practice session.
Oh, well, speaking of agendas.
Have you found yours?
I was on a little bit of a different agenda there for a little while.
That's
Sorry
okay.
about that. I got hung up in the inspection line and couldn't get through my trip.
But we had you on the 5-minute clock, so you're good.
Yeah, it's good to go.
All right.
I was sitting there talking to some friends, and they said practice was getting ready to start. And I said, I wonder which practice that is.
All right. Here's Steve.
All right, thank you, Mike. Nice of DW to join the show. Clint Boyer and I were laughing the other day. Clint, you said, I'm not even sure if I'm locked in the Daytona 500, but you are. And how much peace of mind does that give you, and how does that change your preparation, if at all?
Well, it's, you know, definitely sleeping a little better at night. But, you know, Shane Wilson, all the guys on the Cheerios, Hamburger Helper Chevrolet, they were working hard on this car all season long, all off season long. And, you know, we were ready for them. I mean, I think we were 10th or 11th on the board. So, you know, due to a lot of hard work and dedication, a lot of people's parts, we were ready for them if we needed to be.
And very good. You got your sponsors right after driving that 07 car.
Yeah, new colors, new number, new look.
All right, good luck, Clint.
And he was definitely by far the fastest of the Richard Childress cars in that very first practice session. But yeah, that car indeed comes in here locked into the top 35, even though it's a brand new team of Richard Childress Racing because of Bobby Ginn being a part of the DEI merger about 1.5 years ago with the 01 car. Bobby Ginn was no longer with DEI, so they formed a partnership with Richard Childress to lock that car. And no, you are not allowed a follow-up question.
Yeah, I was going to say, trying to figure out somebody I can merge with.
Our broadcast team?
Broadcast team, yeah.
That'd be good.
Should have drug something down here, baby, I'm telling you.
It's curiouser and curiouser.
Like Darrell says, makes me kind of want to go,
Friday night, sparks fly as the Camping World Truck Series comes to speed. It's the perfect storm of danger and speed, live from Daytona Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and only on Speed, the newly renamed Camping World Truck Series, racing the way it ought to be.
I guarantee they'll put a show on. Yeah, it's nothing for them to finish the race at the start-finish line 3 wide.
Got our buddy Ryan Newman here in the U.S. Army car. That car's been pretty quick in practice so far. But, Mike, as I looked at those fire trucks and all the safety equipment, all the support equipment that it takes to put on a Cup race and also the other series as well, that's a lot of equipment. That's a lot of people that you have to get down here just to put the show on. It's kind of like our deal. So many people behind the scenes that you don't see that that takes to put one of these shows on.
Right, and now a lot of those people travel race to race instead of relying. They used to rely a lot on local help at all of the racetracks. Not so much anymore.
Not so much.
People that are professional and doing the job and being able to be part of it. Why 39? Ryan Newman's car. Because when he raced in USAC for his own family-owned team with his dad Greg turning the wrenches, that was his number. It was available, and Tony Stewart, his teammate and boss, said, I want to run 14 for A.J. Foyt. They got the rights to 14. Newman said, well, if I could pick any number, I'd like 39.
I think he actually won. Did he not win a nationwide race in the 39 car?
He did, driving for Penske. Yeah. So right now he's at a 48.25. And in the earlier practice, I was trying to look exactly what he did run then. He ran a 48.17, so he slowed down about 3/4 of a tenth.
Here's one. Ryan Newman is the first driver since 1980 to do what?
In 1980?
Win the 500 and switch teams the following year.
Oh, wow.
Buddy Baker did it.
Okay.
I always thought you were going to say roll through the grass one year and win the next.
Well, that too.
Crash, burn, and then come back with a win. That's pretty big.
Now that shot we just saw in the garage area where you saw 2 24 cars, you were talking about, you know, each team having 2 cars that's in the Budweiser shootout, and there's 28 of them. That was Steve Letarte, Jeff Gordon, their team, the 24 team, looked like doing a little swapping around with their shootout car and their 500 car. Jeff has only made 1 run in this practice session. He's 11th quickest.
Scott Speed driving for the Red Bull Toyota team and wearing number 82. One of 2.
Yeah, well,
at least 2 contenders for Rookie of the Year.
It's not the same car that he ran into that guy in front of him last night.
And the guy in front of him, Paul Menard, they have fixed his car, and it will start on the pole tonight in the Bud Shootout. He will not have to go to a backup car.
Good for them.
Krista.
Well, during these, I guess you'd say, qualifying practices, some of the best stories come from the guys who have to make it in the show on speed. One of those is Jeremy Mayfield. And on the chart, you guys look really good. This number 41. Are you going to make the show?
Well, we certainly hope so, but we're still going to come down and race our way in probably. And, you know, I'm just proud of all these guys in the all-sport team. They've done a great job getting the car here. And, you know, a lot of guys that have been together, they kind of know what they had coming into this place. We really didn't know anything, so we're coming into it pretty blind. And but every run we're getting better and better, and we're gaining on it. And hopefully by tomorrow we'll have a good shape.
Thanks, Jeremy.
We know that tomorrow the front row will be set for the Daytona 500 based on time trial speeds, but for drivers like Jeremy Mayfield and Tony Stewart, their agenda is just a little bit different.
Well, it is. You know, Tony Stewart, he knows he's going to race in the Daytona 500 simply because I think he's going to be fast enough, but he has that championship provisional to fall back on. But, you know, Jeremy Mayfield, that team was not even a race team January 1st. It just came to fruition about a month ago. And those guys are just trying to get to a point, like he said, get their car driving good and maybe put themselves in the right position on those last few laps of the dual races next Thursday just to get in this show and at the same time attract a sponsorship that will stay with that program.
And you know, a guy that's holding his breath right now, but probably sign a little bit of relief with Bill Elliott as fast as he is, Tony running as good as he is Terry Labonte. Terry's sitting down there. If he doesn't run fast enough to get in the show, he could use that champion provisional if these other guys more current than him happen to be good on speed.
Terry will be really rooting for Tony and for Bill to run fast in qualifying.
Yeah, and so far it's working out. Right 21 and is first, and 14 is third. Cool.
Steve.
Mike, with Greg Biffle, just wanted to follow up. I heard you talking to Dick Berggren this morning. You guys were bottoming out a little bit. Did you get that problem solved?
Yeah, we did. We just, you know, put a little shim in the front. And, you know, the wind is starting to pick up and the sun is a little bit warmer now, so it's really hard to keep track of your speed. You know, you look at the rest of the group, but it looks like, you know, we may not be as good as we were in the first session, but we got a few things we're going to do here to see if we can get her to go a little better.
Greg, DW said he's looking for an alliance or a merger. He didn't think practice started for another 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, I started the session in watching TV because they were finishing up a few things. I noticed he wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe we'll get him a new watch or something to make sure he's on time. I better not give him too much crap because I might be late sometime or another.
Good point. All right, we'll let you go work on your race car. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
He's a very smart driver, you know, because he knows, like I know, what goes around will come around.
But you know, something tells me this is not going to go away.
Apparently
it's going to
not.
stay with us for a while.
Apparently not, and you know, I have no real legitimate excuse.
I had one for you that you're still on Central Time.
That's a good one, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I was down there trying to fit in a seat, and that didn't work out.
Well, and the next thing you're hoping that Stevie's not listening to the show.
Yeah, I hope it was the seat of a rental car.
I was thinking about it. I was going to see if David Hill would let me call the race from the car, the race car.
I remember trying that once at TNN.
It didn't go over too good, did it?
Buddy, how's the car running? I'm a little busy right now. Yeah. And he was, but he really did. Buddy Baker did a good job for us that day trying to call, it was the Winston Open from the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. was third quickest in that first practice session. He was the fastest of the Hendrick Brigade, making his first run of this practice session.
These cars look so much better in qualifying trim by themselves than those that we watched getting ready for the Bud Shootout.
He's probably going to jump up there pretty high because that first lap was a pretty sporty first lap, 48-46, and as we pointed out earlier, when Bill Elliott was running,
RPM going down that back straightaway if you can. That's a headwind right there.
Yeah, you know what though, Larry? I don't think he ran real high on that
82,
first lap.
right at the bend of the gridway.
See how I'm sure he'll pick up some. I don't know if he put her up against the outside wall or not.
Darrell Tony-Uri Jr. just heard him wanting the RPM. We talked about this in the first practice. They have an option of a rear end gear, either a 364 or 370. We anticipated that's one of the things the teams would be trying is each gear and then looking closely what the wind's like tomorrow. And he absolutely goes to second quickest at a 48.03.
Yeah, it's hitting the ground harder.
It's going faster.
Mystic, Connecticut, where it's a little chillier than it is right here. Ah, yes, home of the Mystic Missile Modified team. Terry Labonte.
Is that the blue
34th.
three?
Pardon me?
What's the blue three?
The Lenny Bowler, the Bowler team, all blue.
Yeah.
Yep. And now it's Mike Bowler's race team.
Yeah.
That Fred DeCero, Bugsy Stevens used to drive.
Oh, man. I love those cars.
Terry right now is 34th quickest out of the 36 cars. One thing we do need to clear up, we were discussing a while ago, is the past champion provisional.
Yeah.
It goes to the most recent champion that needs it. Of course, Tony Stewart would be the most recent that it would be available to, but actually Terry Labonte would come in front of Bill Elliott. Terry won the championship last in '96. Bill won the championship in 1988.
And the criteria is the most recent past champion who is not in the top 35 and already locked into the field.
And we have 3 of those that are not in the top 35.
Krista?
Well, we're actually up on top of the hauler with Brian Vickers. If you see us, we're looking over the chart. Brian Vickers is sleeping much better this year than he has in years past because you are in the show. You don't have to worry. You're just kind of tweaking your car, I guess, getting it ready the best you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that was 2 years of misery, to be honest with you. But fortunately, we're locked in this year, and you know, really proud of how far Red Bull Racing has come in the past 3 years, and excited about the 2009 season.
So what are you missing with your car? If there's one thing you need right now, you're going to go back out and make another run. I mean, to get that speed, what do you need?
You know, we probably need a qualifying car, not a race car. You know, knowing that we were locked in this year, we came down here and built a car really more suited for racing. You know, obviously this track's gotten really slick and requires downforce, and that's not the car we brought down here to qualify as far as that's concerned. So there's not a lot we can do. I mean, we're going to do obviously as much as we can, try to get the ride heights right. But beyond that, it is what it is, and hopefully we'll have a good car on Sunday.
All right, so I guess, Mike, that means bad for this Sunday, maybe good for Sunday the 15th.
Well, and that's where they pay the money, Krista. You're right. There's the hauler area of the Sprint Cup garage and the fan zone.
Brian Vickers pretty much was living on the absolute edge over the winter. I think he was over in Austria flying upside down in helicopters or something. I don't know. He was doing all kinds of weird things over there.
Thanks.
That's not safe. I wouldn't try that. You know what I would be excited about though is David Ruderman in that 00 car. just jumped up to fourth quick.
Fourth quickest.
He's really happy about the car, and he's also happy about having that 00 number back, because that's his dad's old number, and it's been in the family for, how old's Buzzy, 80 something?
I remember Buzzy racing. Well, I don't remember, but I've seen pictures of Buzzy Ruderman in the Dover Break 00 in the early to mid 1950s.
Yeah. Got that number because his granddad walked into the shop where they're working on the car, and he said, "The thing doesn't look like nothing to me." So they put 00 on it.
How about that? Tony Stewart, now an owner-driver. He's an equal partner in Stewart Haas Racing. For he and Ryan Newman, he says Monday through Thursday I'm an owner, but Friday through Sunday I am just the driver.
But you know, the most interesting thing I learned, Mike, is you and Daryl and I sat down and talked with him. Everybody had anticipated one of the reasons that he chose Ryan Newman, besides Ryan is a great race car driver, was their open wheel background. But both of them said nothing to do with it. It's we have so much in common off of the racetrack. We both love the outdoors. Tony's building a log cabin house. Ryan's building a log cabin house. They have so much in common off the racetrack, and they said, honestly, that's probably what drew us together and keeps us communicating with each other.
Well, I think the most important thing, and then someone mentioned it a little bit ago, is chemistry. And if you have a teammate, particularly in a new situation like they're in, and you have common goal, or you have things in common, that's going to make it a whole lot easier for you to make that transition. Remember, both of them have driven for guys that should be on Mount Rushmore. You know, you got Joe Gibbs and you got Roger Penske, and now they're on their own. So having that common bond is going to really be helpful, I think, as they go down the road. Whoa, hello.
Let's take a ride with
that looks fast.
Engine number 9.
That thing is getting it, isn't it? It looks like a video game.
Let's take a look at his tack there. We heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. say he was turning about 8,200 down the back straightaway. And at about where this 9 car is, maybe about 83 or 84. If you notice the tack in the miles prior, wide open around this 2.5-mile racetrack, never really changes.
That's one of the things that the crew will ask you, if you can tell them, is how much are you dropping in the corners? Which is something that telemetry will tell you, and you don't have to look. But when you're out here like we are now, just the driver in the car, you have to be able to tell them that's dropping 200 in the corner, because that's huge, and you might need to free it up a little bit.
Casey's lap 35th quickest, 48.68. Here's Steve.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Talking with Tony Stewart. And the first practice, you were talking to Dr. Dick Bergen about how proud you were of this team to run this good right out of the box. And it looks like you've gotten even faster.
Yeah, and hopefully we got a little bit left for tomorrow, too. So just really proud of Bobby Hutchins and Darian Grubb and Tony Gibson and all the work that they have done to get these guys assembled and organized. And, you know, like we said, all the guys that are at our shop that can't come down here and all the guys that are here, they've done a great job of getting ready to come down to Speed Weeks.
Tony, would you describe yourself as maybe pleasantly surprised at how well it's gone so far? I know it's early, but...
Well, I don't know that I'm pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think we've looked at it as we've got the right tools in place. It was just getting the right people, and I think that's something that, you know, that's why I give Darian Grubb and Tony Gibson and Bobby Hutchins so much credit, because they're the ones that put all the people together for us. So, you know, to a certain degree, yes, but in another sense, no. When you look at the guys that we got and where they came from and why they're here, it's... you know, it makes me feel like it's proof that the guys we got are the right people.
Tony, you said one more run for this practice. Anything in particular you're going to be working on or trying to improve?
Bobby Hutchins said they're going to give me full throttle this time, so I told him I'm not sure if I can handle it or not, but we'll go out and just going to make one more small change and get ready for tomorrow.
Thanks for your time.
Everybody, thank you.
That's Darian Grubb right there in the black sweater.
Tony Stewart right now is 5th quickest. His teammate Ryan Newman 11th. Bill Elliott, Dale Jr., Martin Truex are quickest. Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Verizon Wireless. Call more people, use 0 minutes on America's largest mobile-to-mobile calling family. Verizon Wireless. By Old Spice Swagger, the scent that makes a difference. And by Toyota. For the latest racing info, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward.
You know, real quickly on Tony Stewart, when I look at Tony Stewart, there are a lot of people that I've seen that come in this sport and they're kind of visionaries. They come in with a whole new idea about how to do this deal. But then there are other people that kind of can step back and say, I see what you got here, here's how we're going to make it better. And that's where I see Tony with the Haas deal over there. I see what you got. You got everything in place. You got a beautiful shop. You got everything here that it takes to be successful. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to make it better. And I think he did that at Eldora, and I think he can do that with this race team.
And you know what was impressive is we watched Bobby Labonte in this 96 car. Bobby was second quickest in the first practice. As Tony told us this, that, you know, it would have been easy for them to walk in there and say, this is how we're going to do things. But they had people that came from Hendrick Motorsports. They had people that came from Richard Childress Racing, from Roush Fenway. And he said they spent a lot of the months of November and December listening to different people's way of doing things. And what they tried to do, they tried to take the best of all the worlds, and that's what they've tried their best to incorporate there.
Let me ask you this. Where's Bobby Labonte?
Third quickest.
I just thought I'd ask.
.com. Tight. Tighter than I wanted to be in 1 and 2.
Good run, though. Third behind Bill Elliott and Dale Jr. Krista?
Casey Kane is out of his car, and right now you're about 0.3 slower than A.J. Allmendinger, Elliott Sadler, your teammates. What do you guys need to do to get up there on the chart?
I don't know. Our car actually right there was the same as Elliott's, so we're gonna mess with I think maybe a little different mixture at the carburetor. And other than that, I think we'll just probably qualify a little slower than they will, it looks like.
And I know this event is big for everyone, but obviously sponsored by Budweiser. This is a marquee event for you.
Yeah, tonight's race is going to be a good time, Bud shootout, and I think we had a decent car in practice yesterday. It felt good. Felt like I could draft really well and move around anywhere on the track. So I think we'll see if tonight turns into a handling, race. If it does, I think we'll be in good shape.
Some experimentation for tonight for the big one, qualifying tomorrow, and the Daytona 500 next Sunday.
I don't think we'll have to see if it's going to be a handling race. It will be a handling race tonight, I guarantee you. Martin Truex Jr. in the 1 car, he's 4th quickest. We're about halfway through this practice session. This is the first car to make a second run of this practice session. We've had 50 cars so far that has made laps during this session.
57 cars took to the track in the first round of practice. Drivers from 22 states plus Australia and Colombia used to come down here. The most drivers would be from North or South Carolina or Tennessee or Virginia. Not anymore. 8 drivers from California lead the list.
Now Martin's time that first run right at the start of this practice was 48.12. His first lap was a 48.52, and as you can see, he's brought it pretty much right to the bottom of the racetrack.
Picked up 47.999. That is second fastest.
Pretty sporty.
Yeah, he becomes only the second driver to get down in the 47-second bracket. And that 47.99 is right at 187.5 miles per hour average.
I say there's another fellow out there that's getting ready to join that little 47-something crowd.
Jimmy Johnson in this 48 car.
I'd say this is a flat out give her all we got little run here, see where we stack up against these boys.
One thing they were encountering in that first practice, and even Chad Knaus himself was underneath the car working on it. They were bottoming out bad too, so they went to work on that. We'll see what this 48 car can do. This is the pole sitter from a year ago for the Daytona 500. That's one thing I think we need to make sure and understand. We call it Daytona 500 qualifying. It's the front row for the Daytona 500 qualifying. The rest is pretty much set in the way the fields will start in the dual races on Thursday.
Pretty good first lap of 59. 48.59. Can he make 47s from there, Larry?
He really wasn't that far up the racetrack on that first lap, was he? Maybe about halfway up.
Yeah, I think he was rim riding her pretty good. I don't know if he's going to get any help. Got a car going into 3 down here, getting up to speed. I don't think that'll be a factor.
Well, the good thing is that car getting up to speed is up against the wall, and Jimmy right now in his second lap is right around the bottom. His lap in that first practice was a 48.16.
See what this old piece does here. That's what Bill Elliott calls his car, old piece. Warrior calls his old girl.
6th fastest, 48.17.
Pretty much just mirrored what he ran in that first practice.
Didn't quite get there.
Bill Elliott still fastest. Bull Run is coming to speed. Our buddy Bill Goldberg takes 12 teams on the ultimate high-stakes road trip. They'll need to make it through his challenges to collect 200 grand in cash and prizes. Bull Run with Bill Goldberg, February 19th, and only on Speed. Big celebration here this week, Darrell, that you were part of.
Yeah, I was down this morning, and this 25th anniversary of Hendrick Motorsports, and those are all the cars that are painted in the silver paint job. He's doing a die-cast deal, obviously, and but we were just all down this morning paying tribute to undoubtedly one of the greatest car owners of all time in this sport, with all the accomplishments. It was just fun being down there with Rick. All the accolades, all the things that they say about Rick Hendrick, they're not made up. They're all true. He is a super gentleman. He's done so much for the sport. He loves it so much. And you know, Mike, just like being at Barrett Jackson, he loves cars.
He doesn't do anything halfway.
No, and he's a car guy.
That's right.
And it was just fun being down there with Junior and Jeff and Mark and Jimmy Johnson this morning.
How about those stats? That is stout right there. And of course, the one thing we need to add to that is 7 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series championships.
Now, these are career wins by the drivers who currently drive for Hendrick Motorsports. They were not necessarily won in Hendrick cars.
Yeah,
well, that's the win total of his current stable of drivers.
Well, I won 9 races for him, and including the Daytona 500.
Kristen.
You boys were up there talking about agendas earlier. There's a lot of different agendas for different drivers down here in the garage. For Mike Wallace, he was telling me it's like a math problem. Explain that to me. What's the goal?
Well, first of all, the first goal is tomorrow during Cup qualifying, we're going to try to be one of the top 3 non-locked-in cars, the fastest 3. So that if that happens, that secures us a spot in the Daytona 500. If that doesn't happen, then it puts us, of course, a starting spot in the duel on Thursday. Then we have 2 spots available there. So it's kind of like you say, a little bit of a math equation, but it all works out well. We'll go for it tomorrow, and real happy with all of TRG and the new effort here at Daytona. And if we can get it in tomorrow, it'll be big.
All right, thanks, Mike. Let's go to Steve Burns. We're going to Steve.
Steve, send him some Adobe wine over.
Throw it to Steve for me.
Steve Burns, to you with a little Adobe wine.
Thank you, Mike Wallace and Chris Devoda. Now, Casey, a lot of guys moving kind of easy in the garage, but your guys working hard. They took the entire rear end housing out, replaced it. Talk about why they did that.
We're just trying to find some speed. There's different angles, different toes that you can run the rear ends at. And we just want to see if we have a little something different here that might help us get a little bit of speed. And not having a whole lot of testing, we need to try all we can right now to get some answers.
All right, well, let's get in the race car. And by the way, guys, Casey said the shootout tonight is going to be crazy.
We believe it.
I do believe it. And just real quickly on the rear end housing, if you think about how they dog track the cars at the 1.5 miles with the right rear kicked out to get more downforce, what would you think would be good at Daytona?
For qualifying.
For qualifying, maybe.
You want to kick it in.
Kick it in and get
less drag.
And take away a little of that downforce in the corner.
So the moral of the story, since this is not an impound race, chances are a lot of rear end housings will get changed after qualifying.
Roger that.
You will see qualifying tomorrow on Fox, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And this is one of the cars you'll see tonight on Fox at the Budweiser Shootout, the race that sent Denny Hamlin to prominence in this series when he won it for Joe Gibbs.
You know, Mike, we had Denny on our trackside show last night, and I think one of the things we're all really pumping and promoting is this is a year of racing for our fans, giving them as much as we can give them. And Denny Hamlin, if you go to dennyhamlin.com, he is giving 4 tickets away for every single race of the 2009 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series season. I guess you just have to go there and you have to write a little letter about why you think you should be able to go sit in Denny Hamlin's seats, and he's going to pick a winner every single week.
And you don't even have to be a Denny Hamlin fan. You can wear junior stuff or whatever you want. He says it'll be at least 4 seats more at Richmond. Thursday live on Speed. Everybody wants to get right there. Gatorade Victory Lane, because it's the Gatorade Duel at Daytona. to set the starting lineup for the Daytona 500. The only qualifying races of the entire Sprint Cup season, and you'll see them right here on Speed Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Here are the drivers who must either, as Mike Wallace said, be one of the 3 fastest go-or-go-homers in tomorrow's qualifying, or race their way in the Gatorade Duel on Thursday to make the Daytona 500. Tony Stewart, we know, has first shot at the Champions Provisional if needed. He is one of 3 drivers with that opportunity. Veterans, rookies, and quite a group of drivers. James Hilton is how old?
74.
Yeah.
Yep. I raced when I was a rookie at Talladega in 1973. I think that's the year James, or 72. James won that race. I was racing him for the win. And I was a rookie.
In 70.
And he was 72. And he was he was a little senior to me at the time.
Well, James Hilton finished second in Grand National points to Ned Jarrett.
Well, you know, he's a lot like a Kurt Schammerding. He found out he was a mechanic, and a great mechanic, great car builder.
Yeah, he was Ned's crew chief.
Yeah, Ned's crew chief.
A season
he said, you know, I think driving this thing would be a whole lot easier than working on it. And so he turned into a driver, and he had great race cars. Number 48.
That's right.
Now, we've been talking about numbers. We just saw Travis Kvapil in that 28 car. Now, Travis finished 23rd in the owner points in 2008. But that's a car that will have to race his way in, because what Max Jones and Doug Yates did, the 28 points actually go now to the 98 car of Paul Menard. So Paul Menard's locked in. Travis Kvapil will have to race his way in or have one of those quick times like Mike Wallace was talking about.
Here's Kristen.
Well, we're talking a lot about new names, new colors. Not a new name, but we do have new colors for David Reagan, UPS. And you said the most important thing for you at Daytona is to get into a rhythm. How exactly do you do that? Is it just track time, or are you already there?
We're close. I think when they drop the green flag tonight for the Bud Shootout, we'll be there. But I'm pretty happy with our UPS Ford, our Daytona 500 car. You know, we'll always find a little bit more speed. Jimmy's always good for that. But really excited about tonight, our first Bud Shootout with a new group of guys, UPS colors on the car. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and the weather's warming up a little bit, so it's nice.
What about your other car? How good are you going to be tomorrow? Can you put the thing on the front row?
I don't know. It looks like a Ford has a real good shot at being on the front row. It looks like the Wood Brothers 21 is pretty fast. But, you know, we came down to race, and the Thursday races are very important for us. But it would be awesome to see a Ford on the front row for the Daytona 500.
Thanks, David.
Larry, I know this is not an impound race, but when the 21 car, I mean, they're full blown. You know, fluids, everything you can possibly do to that car, because Bill's got to get in on time unless Tony does. And so don't you think they're probably, at this point, even practicing qualifying runs, that they're probably a little bit more up on the chip than everybody else is?
Well, let's go back to what Brian Vickers was telling us earlier, actually Scott Speed's teammate. I think as far as fluids and things of that nature, everybody's going to be on equal ground. But I think maybe some subtle things, underbody panels, things like that you can do per the NASCAR rule book. Yeah, there's no question. Teams like Bill Elliott, the 21, Scott Riggs, the 36, Allmendinger, the 44, those teams have to be more aggressive with things that will make them go fast. But I talked to Chad Knaus last night. He said he loves this qualifying here because it's the only restrictor plate track we go to, a race we go to that's not an impound, and you feel like you have an equal shot at qualifying, where the other 3 races, those guys are pretty much qualifying their race setup, and you just can't really get after it like you can here.
Based on practice speeds right now, the drivers outside the top 35 who would be in the Daytona 500 are Bill Elliott, Tony Stewart, and Scott Riggs on speed. Terry Labonte by way of the Champions Provision. That's just based on practice speed, which doesn't count. Bill Elliott still quickest. Bill, along with Tony Stewart and Scott Riggs, the fastest of the go-or-go-home group. And that would put Terry Labonte into the race as well, the way things stand right now per practice speeds. And I know Steve Burns has been very busy down there composing his letter to DennyHamlin.com for free tickets.
Yes, we have. And we'll talk about the DennyHamlin.com thing in just a minute, Mike. But Denny, before we talk about the cool thing you're doing for the fans, let's talk about your race car or race cars in the shootout tonight. You just got out of your race car after practicing.
Yeah, I was just talking to you. I don't think we'll be a pole contender, but I definitely think we're going to be hopefully in the top 10, which will then in turn give us a good starting spot for the duel. So looking forward to that. Look forward to the race tonight. This should be pretty interesting. It's definitely going to be wild. It was wild last night. There were a couple hairy moments, but all in all, our FedEx Express Toyota's been pretty good all weekend right off the truck.
Denny, I was talking to John, who does public relations with you, and he talking about the DennyHamlin.com program where you're going to give 4 tickets to every fan. He said there's already been 100,000 hits on the website since last night when you announced it.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to have the fans' participation in that. It just shows how many fans would love to go to these races that don't necessarily get a chance to. So, yeah, that's what it's all about, is bringing the people here that either don't normally get a chance or can't come for some reason.
And it's not just, they can't just go. They have to tell you a story, right?
That's right. We want to hear the story of why you deserve to sit in my seats.
All right, appreciate it. Good luck with that program, Denny.
All right, thanks.
Mark Martin in that 5 car, Daryl, he just jumped up the 4th quickest.
Yeah, he did. That's a good lap. 48.07 there. That's pretty sporty. Right behind Dale Jr. at a 48.03 and just ahead of Labonte in the 96. Bobby Labonte at a 48.08. So pretty tight right there at that top 5.
There's a lot of those Ford emblems up there in that top 10, though. We've actually got 6 of the top 10. I'm sorry, 6 of the top 10 are actually Chevrolets, and then we've got the 2 Fords.
And a couple of Toyotas there at 7th and 10th. Ruderman and Hamlin. Logano 11th.
The fastest Dodge is Elliott Sadler, who's in 18th right now in the 19 car.
Greg Biffle is 28th on the speed chart. He's out making his 2nd run.
We've had 53 of the 57 cars that's participated in this practice session with roughly about 20 minutes to go.
I've not seen Joe Nemechek on the track, nor Kurt Shelmerdine. And excuse me, Nemechek has been out. He is 26th. So we'll get a list of the drivers who have not been out.
We're about 10 minutes away from chaos. Chaos will break loose
when everybody just goes for it
before the session's over with.
Okay.
Because once you realize, okay, guys, we're not going to get back out if we keep sitting here like this, and somebody has to go.
Yeah, we've got about 20 cars out on pit road right now. So yeah, there's no way everyone will get a clean lap run.
Nope. Well, you were asking me about my brother. Did I think was he holding anything back? I think we'll find out right here. He's on a run right now, and this is about the time of day when you'd say, okay, whatever we got. Let's see what it is.
Yeah, he was 39th quickest in that first practice session, and right now he's 33rd.
I like what I see on the tack. It's not losing a lot of RPM in the corner. He's up to what, about 8,300 there. And it looked like it was hanging just above 8,000 through the corner. Nah,
yep.
That's about 8,000. That's about right. A couple hundred is what you want to see.
Lost about 3 or 4 miles per hour down in turn 3 and 4. Now, this is the fastest part of the racetrack, sailing off into turn 1. We saw 183 at the end of the backstretch.
But Michael does not pick up. He is 33rd fastest right now.
No gain.
Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice brought to you by Toyota. For the latest on Toyota racing info, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota moving forward. And by Old Spice Swagger, the scent that makes a difference. Bill Elliott, Martin Truex, Dale Jr., Mark Martin, and Bobby Labonte are the Fast 5. Here are the 4 drivers who have not yet been on the racetrack. Kirk Shelmerdine, Kevin Harvick, James Hilton, and Mike Garvey. Harvick, perhaps a bit of a surprise there.
Well, they were only 31st quickest in that first practice, but again, working at Richard Childress Racing for about 3 or 4 years, knowing the fact that with these restrictor plate engines, when they're the freshest, that's when they're the fastest, and they only made 1 run in that first practice session. I'm sure they feel like, hey, there's nothing else there. Why just go out there and put more time on the engine?
James Hilton's car was pushed out, and they had a look under the hood. Now they're going back to the garage. Krista?
Alvarola, one of the cars, very fast. So you get out of the car, and I would imagine you're pretty happy. This will be your first Cup start at this track.
Yeah, anytime I get to come to Daytona, this is home for me. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, which is not very far away. But to come here for the Daytona 500 is just really special for me. And to have Guitar Hero World Tour come on, and man, it's exciting. I'm just excited to be down here. We're fast. Our guys have picked right up where they left off from July. They qualified on the pole. This is the same group of guys. So we're excited about our chances tomorrow.
Well, do you play Guitar Hero, more importantly?
Oh yeah. I've stayed up many a nights way past my bedtime playing. I get so addicted to it, trying to get better. You know, at first I was okay, and then you try and go up a level and up a level, and it's very addicting, but a lot of fun to play. I think last night I was up till like 3 in the morning playing. So
get some rest. You've got the Daytona 500 coming up. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
And what he means, Doug Randolph and this crew, that's who was looking after Paul Menard's car last July when Paul sat on the pole for DEI.
Yeah, Hammond's a jukebox hero.
A jukebox hero?
Yep. He stays up all night trying to figure out how to make it work.
Oh, jeez. Well, here's the James Finch car with Brad Keselowski at the wheel, and this team was the subject of a lot of the offseason intrigue as to who would be in the top 35. They tried to create an alliance, and NASCAR has final approval rights over any sales of race teams, portions of race teams, mergers and alliances. And when the music stopped, James Finch was one of the car owners without a chair to sit in and is not in the top 35. They tried to form an alliance that NASCAR did not approve of, said that this was not within the intent of the top 35 rules. So it means that Keselowski will have to time or race his way into the 500.
I feel really good about that, to tell you the truth. I'm glad to know there's something that doesn't fit, because everything else has fit up to this point.
And I believe you're absolutely right, Mike. He's going to have to race his way in, because they've kind of been searching for speed. They've got Hendrick engines in that 09 car, but he's only 33rd quickest right now. That team plans on running the full schedule. Brad Keselowski is going to run about 10 races. His next race will be Talladega. Sterling Marlin is going to run the next 2 or 3 for him, starting at California in a couple of weeks.
Martin Truex completes his run not as quick as his previous pass. In fact, about half a second slower.
Well, I think this is actually his second lap right here, Mike. He's looking to better that 47.99 that he ran. They've been pretty solid. They were 4th quickest in the first practice session. So let's see what Martin can do. See if he can pick it up a little bit. A little bit slower, 48.04. But they've been pretty solid ever since the track opened a few hours ago for that first practice session.
Bill Elliott still fastest in this final practice for Daytona 500 qualifying. Closing minutes of practice. Still quite a line of cars waiting to get on the track. Last chance they'll have to make a mock qualifying run. You'll see qualifying for the 500 tomorrow on Fox tomorrow afternoon. 57 cars now, 54 of them have been on track.
Well, they've shut the gate so no more cars can come out, and we've got what, like 10 minutes right at it.
Yeah.
These guys at the back of the line here, somebody's going to have to give.
First appearance for Kirk Shelmerdine on track. Shelmerdine running a Toyota here this year. He has been to victory lane at the Daytona 500 as a crew chief, and has had success here racing ARCA. And was it 2 years ago or 3 that he finished in the top 20?
2006, qualified, raced his way in through the dual races, and finished 20th.
Had quite a payday. Enabled him to run quite a few more races that season.
Yeah, I think Richard had helped him with, or Childress helped him with that car. It was a full-blown Childress car, and he got the most out of it.
He is 43rd fastest of 54.
But Mike, talking about the 57 teams that are here, last year we had 8 single car teams here. This year we've almost doubled that. There's 15 single car teams down there in that garage area. And honestly, I've got to say, a lot of that is a product of this new car, because it is pretty much a templated race car that, you know, if you go buy a car from Hendrick or maybe one of the teams that's non-existent like Bill Davis Racing, that it may not be the absolute premium piece, but it'll be a piece that can be competitive.
And before we get letters, Herc Shelmerdine has been to victory lane at Daytona as a crew chief, though not necessarily in the Daytona 500.
No. Only one crew chief that did that with the man.
At Daytona. Dale and Kurt won a lot of races.
Yes, they did. A lot of races, a lot of places.
But you know, you're talking about the number of single car teams here this year. This is so reminiscent of back in the 70s and 80s there were some super teams, but mainly the guys that came down here and the guys that did most, there were only single car teams.
Right.
And so, you know, to show up here with a one-off car was not that unusual. It's been unusual of late, though.
Yes. Sam Hornish making his run. Let's meet the man who's second fastest with Krista.
And that would be Martin Truex. He got out of his car with a big old smile on his face. So how good is this machine?
Well, it's really good. This is the first time I can honestly say we've been down here and we feel like we have a shot at the pole. They're on the front row here for the 500. So in the past, we've always had good race cars, but we were never good in qualifying. And it's real exciting to come down here and have a really fast car like this. I'm real proud of the guys on the Bass Pro Chevy and everybody at ECR. You got a heck of a motor under the hood, and just real proud to be driving it today.
I want to tell Mike Larry DW, we were joking too, while you're sitting in the car, look at what, if you can tell, Drano, what he's looking at. He's looking at the kids bouncing. He said he has the best garage stall because he's not bored while he's in the car. That's what he's looking at.
Well, I know one thing that is making him smile, because the last time we were at Daytona in July, if you remember, it was a complete disaster for this one car. NASCAR confiscated their race car. They took driver and owner points away from them because it did not fit the grid of templates. Kevin Mannion, his crew chief, was suspended for 6 weeks. And honestly, at that point, they had a legitimate shot at making the chase. That knocked all the wind out of their sails, and it was pretty much downhill the rest of the year.
Brian Newman just broke into the top 5 with a lap of 48.05. He is 4th quickest. Closing minutes of practice to qualify for the Daytona 500. Just a couple of minutes remain. Kyle Busch.
There they go.
I told you.
Track's getting filled up.
Sooner or later, chaos has to break out.
Remember that gentleman's agreement?
All right, we're going to wait our turn, aren't we? Yes, we're all going to stay in line. We're all going to wait our turn. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
And I guarantee that the spotter was part of this. He was trying to time it to get him out there where he would get a halfway clean lap.
Steve.
Mike, I just talked to Steve Addington, the crew chief for Kyle Busch. There's a little concern in this camp. A little while ago, we heard Kyle Busch say that I have a vibration. We followed up with Steve, and he said, yeah, at a certain RPM range, we are a little bit concerned. We put new plugs in, new set of tires. We just want to make sure everything's okay.
So honestly, a clean lap is not that important to him. They're just trying to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, and again, you heard, I think it was Dale Jr. talking last night about the drive line, or maybe it was this morning in practice, how they work so hard to get all the harmonics and all the vibration and make the drive line in these cars as smooth without any vibrations as you possibly can. And a lot of times you'll change the pinion angle of just to qualify with, to get the drive shaft to run a little truer.
And that's where the chassis dyno is such an important tool, because you can measure the loss of horsepower from the engine to the rear wheels. What's going to the rear wheels and hitting the racetrack, that's what's important. You can make all the horsepower in the world with the engine. If you're not getting it back to the rear wheels, then that's no good.
Look, they have been pushing this car of James Hilton's, trying to get it to fire. See a little smoke out the exhaust, and
she's so close.
They roll it back, they push it forward, they roll it back, they push it forward, and he just can't get it to fire.
It's close. I'm telling you. Come on, baby, fire.
Squirt a little ether in the cowl, and I think they've run out of horsepower right there.
And they've just about run out of time because we only have about 3 minutes, 2 minutes now.
That's what they've been asking all the way down through. How much time is left to practice? And not because they want to get out. They just want to quit. 3 minutes.
Looking from Casey Kane's car. Got a clear track behind him.
No speed at all in that 9 car, though, at least in qualifying.
Oh, Kyle Busch found some.
Well, he found a draft is what he found.
Yeah, may have gotten a little help there, but
it was a little bit wind aided. There was a car not that far in front of him.
Did you have that vibration that time?
No vibration that time. Felt faster. RPMs were better all the way around.
That's good news. Never mind what the time was.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the time is. The good news is no vibration, felt good.
Good job, guys.
Because these cars, they will get that 2 lap of qualifying tomorrow afternoon, and they will not be back on the racetrack until Wednesday. The racetrack is closed Monday and Tuesday.
Reed Sorensen trying to improve on 33rd. And this may be the last car to complete a qualifying pass. Takes it up to 23rd.
It was clear. He got a good clear lap.
E7. Good way to end, guys. Good job.
So here's what we know. Right now, we do know of 35 cars that will run in the 500 based on owner points, and Tony Stewart first shot at the Champions Provisional. Bill Elliott, fastest of the fast. Martin Truex, second quickest. And in practice, of the go or go homers, the fastest were Bill Elliott, Tony Stewart, and Scott Riggs. And right behind them, A.J. Allmendinger, Travis Kvapil, Boris Said, and Joe Nemechek.
Tell you what, Bill Elliott gave him something to shoot at right off the bat. Nobody could get there.
He did, and I liked what his crew was doing. It's my favorite part of being down here when everything was going well. Waxing the car.
Getting her ready to qualify.
Maybe they'll put a little baby powder on it before they go out.
It's a Harry Hyde trick.
So 55 cars made it out on track for this practice session. James Hilton, one of the two who did not. Tonight, the Bud Shootout on Fox. Don't miss it.
No, it's gonna be wild, I promise.
All those ducks won't be in a row. Well, M are not ducks. And here's what's coming up later on Speed. We'll see you tonight on Fox for the Budweiser Shootout.